right, welcome guys. We only have one game to go over today, but it's a nice showdown slate. Denver Nuggets, Phoenix Suns. If you guys are new to the channel, welcome. My name's DK. We'll take a look at injury news, what we know so far. We can go over the Vegas odds really quick, and then I'll go team by team, talk about the players I like, and leave some time for some questions. Again, it'll be about a 20-minute stream here since there's only one game, and I don't want to keep you guys longer than need be. Right? There's only so much to talk about on one showdown slate. So, let's go over what we know. And the two pieces of news we got with Will Barton and Mpj. So Will Barton will be on a very limited minutes restriction. So we don't have the specifics, but very limited, I would say somewhere in the 5 to 15 minute range, I'm thinking for Will Barton. We'll get to his price. I really don't see a way that works out unless Mike Malone's just trolling all of us and he actually plays him normal minutes, which if you're kind of new to DFS, you'd be like, oh, coaches never do that. It happened a ton in the regular season, and I mean a ton. Steven Silas, Luke Walton, so many coaches that just troll us with the minutes limit, right? And I always joke about John Wall because when he's on a minutes limit, he actually played more than when he wasn't. So, but I don't think it's going to happen with Will Barton here. But I guess it's always a possibility that Mike Malone just trolls us. And then MPJ's active. He is dealing with the back injury. I think that does make him a little bit riskier. I do think that might lower the ownership a bit on him. But yeah, those are the two pieces of news we're waiting for. So the total here, it's a 224.5 over under, and the Suns are 5.5 point favorites. So we'll start with Denver. First, I'll ask real quick though, if you guys could, if you're just coming in, if you could leave a like button on the live stream. I don't know about that, John. Maybe another one, but I don't have it out. Another live stream for sure. Shot, but yeah. Let's start off with Denver. So on the Denver side, Jokic is going to be 90+% owned, most likely here. I have a hard time seeing him fail here. I think there's three ways, I guess, Jokic can fail. One, he rolls an ankle or something like that, right? Random injury. Obviously, that's one way. Number two, early foul trouble. Possible. Number three, the Nuggets just get absolutely killed. So there is a couple ways he does fail. But even then, even if he plays limited minutes, he'll probably be close to being even in the optimal lineup if he plays 25 minutes, say he gets in foul trouble. So there needs to be something really weird for Jokic to not be in the winning lineup, I think. So all that being said, again, he's going to be very popular. For my one lineup, I will not be fading him. Michael Porter Jr., again, I think that injury, the back, I think that does lower the ownership. He's been, I would say, very up and down so far in the playoffs, right? He was pretty consistent to end the regular season. But in the playoffs, you saw what he started terribly, and then, had a couple of nice games. In the last game, he cooled off a bit. I never know what to make of MPJ. The thing with him, though, is the upside is there when he's playing well and shooting well. So, I still like him for tournaments. If I was building a cash game lineup on the show on slate, I probably wouldn't have him. I probably would fade MP if I was playing cash. But yeah, obviously like him for tournaments because the upside is there. Now, with a combination of Campazzo, Rivers, and Monte Morris, they've shown they're going to go with the hot hand here, right? So it was Monte Morris the last two games in that Portland series where he played 41 in overtime and then 33. And then the last game, he shot 1 of 10 and then limited him to 23 minutes. So when Monte Morris struggled, they give those minutes to Campazzo, right? Whereas when Monte Morris was playing really well, Campazzo's minutes were limited. So that, I don't think I would play both Morris and Campazzo together. I guess there's a chance that Rivers is the odd man out, but it kind of feels like Mike Malone wants Rivers out there more for defense, as weird as that sounds. Talking roster construction, I don't know if I'd play both Campazzo and Rivers and Monte Morris together because I think one of those guys gets slashed from the closing lineup. And it could be either one, right? Now, Campazzo's at 7K. He had the good game last game. He might get slightly more ownership. Monte Morris, again, he shot 1 of 10. He was decently popular that last slate. I think that will lower the ownership, right? Kind of the recency bias I talked about with Gallinari, who went from 70% 2 slates ago. Literally nothing changed, right? DeAndre Hunter is still out. Went from 70% to 5%. That happens all the time in DFS. So Morris just had a really bad game. I think that lowers the ownership. I think for me, give me the discount on Morris over Campozo, and I think maybe slightly lower ownership because that dud last time out. Now, Aaron Gordon, I think, is pretty safe. We know what we're getting out of Aaron Gordon, right? 30-ish minutes, a guy that can score the ball, he can rebound the ball, fair play, right? There's not a ton to say about Aaron Gordon. His role doesn't change much. Again, Barton. Yeah, see, Barton at 6'4", it's just, if he was cheaper, if he was like $3K or something like that, I would have, I think he would be someone in consideration. The only way he gets there is he shoots like 7 of 7 from 3 in like 10 minutes or 15 minutes, or Mike Malone is just lying to us and he plays him normal minutes. But I don't think that's going to happen. So again, for my lineup, I'll be avoiding a guy like Will Barton. Now, Jamaica Green has been a pretty safe play here recently. He should get about 20 minutes. A good rebounder, again, a solid defender too. The price is up a little bit, but I still think he's a pretty safe play. With Rivers, I would say he's safe too. You're never, ever getting excited about playing this guy because I played him 2 games ago. He went for 7 fantasy points in 40 minutes. But my assumption is we get around 30 to 35 minutes from Rivers, which makes him a safer value play because of those minutes. Now, Millsap at 2.6, he'll play the backup 5. He'll play somewhere around 10 to 15 minutes most likely, unless something really weird happens. Now, I will say, if MPJ aggravates that back, it's probably a combo of Jamaica Green and Paul Millsap that get those minutes. So, I mean, you could build a lineup, put both Millsap and Green together, and kind of play for MPJ to aggravate that injury, right? That kind of makes some sense. So, Millsap, I think, is a fine value, and he's a good point per minute guy when he plays that backup 5 role. And that's really it. Again, Marcus Howard might play a couple minutes, but Barton being there, he might get X'd out of the rotation. So, all right, let's move on to the Phoenix Suns. And on the Phoenix Suns side, so we have Booker, Paul, and Ayton at the top. Booker is definitely the guy that has the most upside. We saw it 2 games ago. He's a guy that can go for 50 plus. Now, he probably has a little bit of a lower floor than Chris Paul now that it seems like Chris Paul is fully healthy. I watched that game. The shoulder didn't bother him at all. He played 36 minutes. I think Chris Paul is fully good to go. So I think Chris Paul, slightly safer play. I think Booker is the guy they were shooting for the massive upside. I think he has a little bit more upside than Chris Paul. But I have interest in both guards, and you can definitely play them both together. Now, with Deandre Ayton, he's the guy I think I'm going to be the most... If I was building a ton of lineups, I would be the most underweight. And you guys know I only build one lineup. But he is the guy that I think is going over-owned. I'm worried about Ayton here. He had 2 dud games to close out the series. Still played solid minutes in both those. The offense doesn't really run through him. He gets alley-oops from Chris Paul and Devin Booker. There's not a lot of Deandre Ayton post-ups. He did a good job of staying out of foul trouble the last game. That doesn't mean he's not going to get in foul trouble this game. So there's a lot of risk here. Price still up. Foul trouble risk. I'll be avoiding Deandre Ayton personally. Now, with Bridges and Crowder, both those guys are solid filler plays. Bridges had the ceiling game last game. I think he might be slightly over-owned. Again, as I always talk about, recency bias, right? The last big game should raise the ownership a little bit. I think we get about 35 minutes from him. More out there for his defense, but can hit some shots. And he does have some upside. We saw it the last game. So perfectly fine with the Bridges. My only issues might be slightly over-owned. Whereas Jay Crowder, a little bit cheaper. Again, they're kind of both, good defenders, more out there for defense, but can knock down some shots. Good with both. Maybe a slight preference to Crowder for the discount. Campaign more of the contrarian play with Chris Paul being more healthy. He only played 20 minutes that last time out. Now, he's still a good offensive player, and he can still get it done. And maybe Paul aggravates the shoulder injury, and Payne plays a lot more. It's possible, right? You got to go through. If you're building a ton of lineups, tell a story, right? If you're fading Chris Paul, then it's like, okay, why am I fading Chris Paul, right? Well, he's either going to aggravate the shoulder injury, or he plays awful. If he plays awful, then, Booker is probably going to play really well, and then Campaign probably is going to have a decent game off the bench. So it's like, tell a story with your lineup. But yeah, Campaign right now, nothing more than a contrarian play. As far as a couple of available plays I want to mention here, there's 3 guys. So Cam Johnson, I think it's about 15 to 20 minutes off the bench. He had a bad game last game. Again, recency bias, right? Might lower the ownership a little bit. He's still a guy that can go for 15 to 20. A solid offensive player. I'm perfectly fine with him. Torrey Craig had a really nice game last game. He's only at 2.2K. It's a revenge game, too. The same thing I'll say about Mikal Bridges. Might be slightly over-owned for value. Like, if Torrey Craig's going to be really, really popular on the showdown slate, I'm fine getting away from chalk Torrey Craig, right? So, I'm not saying to fade Torrey Craig. I just, the recent game, I think that raises the ownership a little bit. I think we get somewhere around 10 to 15 minutes from him. And, yeah, fine option. I think the only issue really might be slightly over-owned. And finally, Dario Saric. Someone I'm intrigued by because Ayton did a good job of staying out of foul trouble last game. And that doesn't mean he'll stay out of foul trouble this game. We saw it with Nurkic, right? Nurkic got in foul trouble almost every single time guarding Jokic. So if Ayton does get in foul trouble, Dario Saric is coming in most likely. He was the backup 5 last game. I guess things could change, right? I guess they could troll us and put Kaminsky in, but Kaminsky did get a DNP last game. So you could make a lineup with Saric and kind of play for that foul trouble. I don't think that's the worst idea. I really don't. So I do have some interest in Saric. The way he gets there, though, you kind of need the Ayton foul trouble. If you do not get Deandre Ayton foul trouble, he's only going to play 8 to 10 minutes. So that is where I'm at, guys, for the player-by-player breakdown. Yeah, I think it's a pretty fun slate. My favorite captain, it's going to be Jokic, right? I'm not going super contrarian with my captain play. Jokic had a bad game last game. I think he bounces back here, becomes a little bit more aggressive. So, yeah, let's get some questions, guys. Let's see. Alex with the $2 super chat. Thank you, man. Whose minutes does Barton affect? That's a good question. It actually is a really good question. So, Will Barton, I would think the combination of the guards, right? So, I think Rivers, Campozo, Monty Morris, I would say cut maybe a minute or 2 off of their minutes projections. And then maybe a guy like Jamaica Green plays a couple less minutes. But I would say it's going to affect the guards, but not by a ton, right? I think just chop a few minutes off of those guards. Again, depending on how many minutes Barton plays, it doesn't sound like he's going to play a ton. But yeah, maybe Mpj too. I think Mpj could dealing with the back injury. So I would say guards, Mpj, maybe a minute or 2 out of Jamaica Green. Yeah, the Nurkic pain was real. All right, guys, so 63 likes. I appreciate it, guys. If you guys could, again, leave a like button. Helps me out a ton. Try to get to maybe 80. I know it's a showdown slate. I'll be live for another just over 5 minutes here to answer some questions. So make sure to throw them in the chat here. And yeah, Barton only playing 12 to 18. I think somewhere around 10. I think it's a pretty fair guess, maybe 10 to 15. So Jokic captain with Gordon, Booker, CP3, Craig, and Jamaica Green. Looks pretty good, yeah. Gordon, Cam Johnson, or Michael Porter and Saric. So I think the second one has more upside if things can go right. Right, we know MPJ just has way more upside than Aaron Gordon. Right, that's just a fact on this Denver team. We just don't see the upside in Aaron Gordon anymore. He's more of a safer play, whereas MPJ can go out and get you 50. And so I will say the second one has more upside if MPJ has a good game, and maybe we get some foul trouble from Deandre Ayton. But first is safer. Gordon, pretty locked into his role, not dealing with the injury. Should play about 30 minutes. Cam Johnson should play about 15 to 20 minutes on the bench. So the first one is safe. For the second one, I like for the upside. I'm probably not getting to Barton, no. Ayton or Paul. For me, it's Chris Paul. And it's Chris Paul by a wide margin over Ayton. Yeah, I'm pretty high on Chris Paul. My worry with him so far in the playoffs was just the injury and the minutes, right? And we saw, he didn't look limited at all. Rivers and Green or Crowder and Johnson. I think you're pretty much splitting hairs with both those. first one, but it's really close. Malone said he's getting 12 to 18. Is that what Mike Malone said? Let's do a Barton minutes. 12 to 18. Okay. Missed that. Yeah. So 12 to 18 minutes. Still probably not enough. I guess if he plays at high end 18 minutes, there is a chance he could be in the winning lineup, but you're gonna need a pretty good game from him. So let's see. Favorite dipping sauce? Just ketchup, I guess. I'm not a big dipping sauce guy. So you play Sarge, probably get two fate. Yeah, I would not play Sarge and Ayton together. Because when one is out on the court, the other is not going to be on the court. And yeah, if you play Ayton, I mean, I guess there could, like, you would need something really weird, right? You would need Ayton foul trouble, but for Ayton to be like super productive when he's out there. So like you need Ayton to smash in like 30 minutes, but be in foul trouble, and then Sarge have a good game when he's out and play more minutes. Right? So you need something really weird for that to work out. I'm probably not gonna. I wouldn't recommend it. Bridges or Gordon? For me, it's Gordon. Got to take a stand somewhere in the showdowns, taking a stand on Saric. If you play a guy like Saric, again, you really do need the Ayton foul trouble, which I think is possible. I think it's definitely possible. You can play Captain Craig and play all the top guys. I don't know if it's worth it to go value captain. I don't. But Green's been pretty consistent. I think he's fine in this showdown slate for sure. MPJ or Bridges? Upside wise, it's definitely Michael Porter Jr. Even though we saw the big game from Bridges last game, I think I'll go MPJ either way there. Jamaica Green and Craig or Crowder and Saric. Again, like, are you playing for the foul trouble? The only way you play Saric is for the foul trouble risk. So it's like, I think the second one has more upside, again, if we get some Ayton foul trouble. But you really need that to play Saric. Captain Jokic with Saric, Rivers. That's fine, yeah. So you're going Bears, stars, and scrubs. 3 to 4 studs for optimal? I think so. I mean, you can play 2 studs and then go more balanced. It's possible. Saric, Millsap, or Craig. I think of those 3 straight up, if nothing weird happens, I prefer Millsap. I think Millsap and Craig play pretty similar minutes, and I think I would rather have Millsap to Craig because I think Craig might be a little bit higher owned. Is it okay to play Paul and Payne together if Payne is last piece? It's doable. That will make your lineup different. I wouldn't recommend it a ton because you're going to need something kind of weird to happen. Like maybe they can play Payne and Paul together, but maybe you get some Booker foul trouble, right? You need something a little bit strange. Favorite place to order pizza from? That's a good question. I'm not gonna lie, I like Domino's. I don't get pizza a ton, but I think it's pretty good. Monte Morris or Campaign? That's a good question. I'll go Morris, but it's close, right? Morris has the risk of, if he doesn't play well, he could get limited a bit. But we saw the upside in him 2 previous games. And again, recency bias, he might be a little bit lower owned. Wouldn't play Bull or Najee, no. I mean, unless you're just playing for the massive blowout, because they're not going to play. All right, it's winding down. I'll stay on for another minute. Appreciate you guys coming to check out the shorter live stream. We hit over 200 viewers for a Showdown Slate. That's really good. And thank you to everyone who liked the video as well, or liked the live stream. 83 likes, appreciate it. Sarge, a captain. I mean, you can do it and just, again, hope for the early Ayton foul trouble. No problem, man. If you're no Friday meal, yeah. That is very true. That is very true. I got to break out that shirt. Maybe I'll break it out on Friday. Playing Morris captain, how crazy am I? I don't hate it. I don't like. It's obviously very contrarian, but the upside is there with Morris. And, yeah, if he plays well, he'll probably play over 30 minutes. So that's a contrarian one I don't mind. All right, guys, so last question that I'm going to get out here. Monty Morris and Jamaica Green or Bridges and Rivers? Pretty good question there. I think the second one is safer, right? Bridges and Rivers both probably play over 30 minutes in this one. The first one a little bit riskier because Monty Morris can get those minutes cut short. So it depends how you're playing it. I think the second is definitely safer. All right, guys, that's going to do it. Appreciate all you guys coming to check out the short live stream. I'll be back tomorrow. We got 2 games. Excited for that 2-gamer. Let's hope Milwaukee can get back in that series, hopefully. But I will see you guys all tomorrow. Good luck tonight.